Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on the podcast. And it's going to be a really awesome episode today because I'm joined with Charlie. Charlie was on
Hello.
the last series of the Traitors, which I can't believe this year's gone really fast. I feel like the series just finished, but it was a few months ago now, I think, Charlie, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah. The fun is still going though. The fun is still going, and I hear that they're casting for the new series now, which is mad.
Yeah. It's going really well. Like the first two series were really good, and then they're moving on to the next one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I can understand why they're moving on to the next one because of the fact that it was such a success and so many people were talking about it all over social media. I mean, I'm not on Twitter myself, but Facebook, Instagram, and I think it's really good that everybody's getting involved. And it only's got to take one person to write a status, and there's hundreds of comments about it. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is so good. Because I think I think the music makes it even better when you watch it.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I still get triggered a little bit when I hear certain music. Um, and when I post videos, you can add traitors music to it. But I just every time it comes on, I'm like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
and I start stimming, and it's mad.
I always like it. You know, when everyone's at the round table, the music when everyone's at the round table. I like that bit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you just can't create that tension when everyone's sat round. And even as you're watching it and me watching it back, I felt even more tension. So it must have been for the viewers, it must have been just as tense. Especially even more so, I think, because you guys know who the traitors are. So, whereas we were kind of on survival mode, it must have been just as tense for you guys as well.
Yeah, that's like I'm watching it and I'm saying, what? Why is they not got that person out? They should be getting that person out, not that one.
No, and it's obvious. It really is. And when I watched it back, I was like, even I was shouting at myself, like, how could you not know?
I imagine it's harder though when you're actually in it because you'll get along and you just don't want to vote someone out.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we don't see like the interviews that goes on and what people say. So we all watched the first episode together. And it was great to, when you start to see everybody and everyone was cheering. And then I think it was Paul's first interview when Paul started talking about the fact that he wanted to be a traitor and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I was shocked and on TV. I'm not, yeah, we saw completely different sides. And I think it is hard because of the fact that they are, people are able to portray themselves as a completely different person in those little mini interviews when they're on their own.
Yeah, it's crazy because it is really interesting when you see those interviews and then you see them in the actual portraying them in the show.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But I mean, if there was just everybody was just so fantastic. I was shocked because I thought that Paul must been an actor because there's no way that he could have portrayed and Harry, he could have portrayed such an innocent soul when he was just backstabbing everybody.
In you know when I think the people went down to the dungeon that time and then I think Paul went down there and a couple of others. Paul was quite lucky that they all voted for the other person to go out because if he was left, they would have all known that Paul was the traitor.
Every, everyone would have known. And that's it. It's trying to have your head in the game where you're three steps ahead, two steps back. Um, and there was a lot of conversations that happened with people. And one of them that stood out in my mind was the conversation between Paul and Jazz just before he left. And he didn't know at that point that anyone was going to turn on him. And that conversation where he said, about that Harry would have said this thing. So it's already he was planting seeds. Or did he know? He was about it's just mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's one of these series that you could probably watch two or three times and get different things each time that you watch it.
Yeah, 'cause it seems like everyone's so sneaky. Like,
Yeah.
like Jazz, especially. He was putting people in the room saying, "Shut the door, shut the door, come in, come in." And I was just laughing. I was just laughing at just like, the way he was doing things because he. But to me, he's not a traitor. But to everyone in there, he could be those vibes to be a traitor because how sneaky he was.
Because how sneaky it was, yeah, and that's it. And I think you've got to be so careful. I did feel sorry for Jazz when I was watching it because you don't know who you're talking to, and if you are talking to a traitor, then and you're telling a traitor that you think that it's another traitor, you're up for the chop. So you have to be really careful. And like you said, which was bang on point, if you are kind of getting a bit sneaky, then people think you're it's a minefield.
Yeah, and Jazz did very well. He got to the end. Um,
He did.
mm,
I think Harry underestimated him a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think in terms of me as well, I think I was really good at finding the faithfuls. I wasn't necessarily good at finding the traitors. I really, really tried, but I think because of the fact that I work in mental health, um, I find myself wanting to be there for everybody and then almost being like the mother hen rather than looking for the traitors. But then I suppose it was gameplay in the end because I got so far because I was trusted and yeah, there's so many dynamics to it, honestly. I could talk about it for days.
Yeah, because I think you got there. You got right to the end just before the final. You gone, so you're so close.
Just before, yeah, just before. And I think there was a moment where I'm not sure whether you guys seen it, but we were outside. It was the night before the murdering happened, and there was a conversation where between everybody, and that one of the topics on the conversation was like, Charlie, you're just no one thinks that you're a traitor because just at that point everyone thought that I was a faithful, which I think Harry was part of. So it was almost part of my downfall, really, was that, I mean, this is a whole different element that I never really considered, is that you almost have to be a little bit traitor like. So you don't go, you're still in the game, you know?
I can't believe no one thought of Harry though that whole time.
I know. And because I think that Harry was such a, almost like, I suppose he was in the army, so the vibe that I got was like he wants to protect us all, and and oh, I'm going to look after you. And Harry had a really good way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the room, and I think he had charm. And let's be honest, and I think there's lots of people out there that have got really good charm who have the power that Harry had. And yeah, I got 11 for it because he got all to the end. But I gotta say, he does have the man's got charm.
He did well. He did well, and having the shields really helped him. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was so good. It was so good to watch, and like I think it was a bit longer this time because I think the first series we had it I think around December time, and then this series was in January I think it was. So it was a bit
yeah.
longer to wait, but it's worth it.
It was, and I know that Claudia Winkleman put in the papers a lot where she said that she was really didn't want to do the second series for the pure fact that there was she didn't know. Surely we can't beat the first season, like purely because of the viewings, and it absolutely blew up. And when you're almost part of that, so I watched the first series and I was like, oh, I was so gripped by it. And I think even as a kid, I was watching those murder mysteries like Poirot and stuff. And I would have like a little notebook where I would write information down, so I could get the killer, and that's what I was like. And I was so gripped by it. I thought, oh, this is just a little bit of me. I didn't think about the missions though.
Yeah, those
Because it's
missions.
hard. The missions are hard. That first mission where we had to go into I think it was the lake and we had to get the big puzzle pieces. So I was in a boat and like we couldn't oar because I don't know whether you've ever done that, but you just in circles. So I thought, no, do you know what? I can do this. I'm just going to jump out of the boat. So when I jumped out of the boat, I have never felt such cold, so cold in my life, because I don't know whether anyone's done cold water swimming, but it is freezing. We were in the Highlands, you know, in this water, and even though we had all the gear on, it's almost like your face goes numb, and I was gonna have to like call some sort of medic over. And then I started swimming, but I think you know I was swimming against the tide, so I was just swimming on the spot. But yeah, anyway, my point was the missions were really difficult. Even though on TV it looks like you're like, oh come on, it's right next to you. When you're in reality, you know, it is it is
Yeah.
hard work.
Yeah, on the telly it goes really fast, doesn't it? So in
Really fast, really fast. But I know in the missions they said, you know, you've got an hour. We do have an hour. But it takes you a little while to kind of get your head around what you're expected to do. So, because you read the instructions once, they told you, it was like, this is what you've got to do, X, Y, Z. Whereas with me, I probably need to understand it a little bit more and kind of, you know, ask some questions and be, but you're in it. That's it. You've got to do it and you're in it. And yeah. And you're being filmed as well, which is
yeah, yeah, but you're getting that extra pressure there.
extra pressure, that's right.
Yeah. Um, but is there a favourite mission that you had that you did at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the catapult mission, I think, when I shouted, "This is for Bristol." I mean, yeah, I've kind of had a bit of stick online about it because everyone's like, "Surely that wasn't the best moment of your life." But I think once you look at the bigger picture, you know, like I'm not very good at the missions. I'm in a game where I'm so stressed, and I've gone into a game where I know nothing about. You know, this is a new experience, and then to be able to achieve something because of me, not just as a team, that was like a sense of real accomplishment. And I don't know whether you've been picked first or you've won something or a trophy. It was such a sense of achievement where um I just couldn't speak. I couldn't speak for a long time. Like I genuinely felt emotion. I didn't really keep cool when we fired the catapult and I shouted it. I mean, all you can see is my hands going. I'm running around, jumping up and down. There was no kind of race or class about it. It's just pure excitement, and I think that was it. It was almost just for that moment. I almost forgot that we were having to find traitors and we're having to sit around the round table, and that was it. Like when we were in the missions and you just it's time to kind of just have fun together, and then almost when the mission is over you see everyone's face start to change, and you know within that time frame that's when you've got to potentially send one of your friends home, you know, because of the fact that you think that they're a traitor. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult.
But yeah, you have the fun in the mission, and then as soon as the mission finishes, you're at the round table, and you feel like, oh, like you say, you got to send someone home. Like when you went, were you unaware that you were going to be next? Did you have a feeling that maybe you were going to be everyone's going to vote for you?
I mean, do you know what I would say? So I would say from the start, really. I mean, everyone kind of thought that they were going. I mean, as a faithful, the you kind of more fear the murder than the banishment because of the fact that you're telling the truth. So I mean, as time went on, you start to fear the round table as well because um anyway, yeah, you do. Because I had this weird fear around the round table, and I haven't told anyone this, so this is exclusive. I had this weird fear that, you know, when you really, really don't want to say something, and sometimes you end up saying it. So all I kept thinking about is if I accidentally go because I'm a traitor or instead of faithful, and done my head in so much. And then because I didn't want to say something, I became nervous. So I think from the first time I went into the show, from the first episode, I thought that I think the first day I thought I potentially might go, and as time went on, I kind of you build that confidence, and then yeah, I just kind of lived every day as it was, you know, and as it comes, and I thought I was blessed to do that. Towards the end, yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I thought I would definitely get murdered rather than banished, just because no one ever mentioned me. That I never got any calls. I think Zach was the only person that ever said to me, Charlie, are you a traitor? Just outright. It was in another conversation just to see my reaction. And then he said straight away, he said, yeah, I can, but maybe I should have been like, wow. No.
Yeah, yeah. There were times like I would watch it being a neutral. I don't know anything about any of the players, of course. Like you speak about Zach. There'll be times where I actually wanted Zach to go because he was getting it all so wrong. He was getting it all wrong, and I'd think to myself, "Oh, I hope Zach goes tonight." Not being mean, but it's just for the sense that he's getting it all wrong. He's getting other pointing fingers that aren't correct. Of course, it's hard to be in the faithful, but just as a viewer, that's how I kind of felt when watching it a little
Because,
bit.
and this is where it comes down to as well. Now, I think Zach really, really tried hard, and he really tried hard to get the people and get them asking them questions. But it does become that element of it is a reality show, so you are gonna have your favorites. You are gonna have the people that you really think, do you know what, you're really good, or you're really funny, or and naturally, the way that the game goes is that you find the bigger personalities or the people that are the favourites tend to start to go because of the fact that they can intimidate the traitors. So they definitely had their favourites. And I think that we had our favourites, and that was really tricky. So I pull back to when Miles went. Now, I was really close to Miles, yeah, and like really close. So when he came out as a traitor, I was like, I I really felt sad that he'd gone, but at the same time, I can't be sad that he's gone because then people will think I'm the traitor. So I had to almost pretend to cheer when he went. Initially, it was Ray. Then when it sinks in that your friend's gone, you still can't be sad. You can't be sad because you can't be, oh damn it, the traitor's gone. So yeah, it was quite tricky, but everyone kind of had their favourites, and I think everyone really, really tried, and no matter what side you were on. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, at least you have a good time as long as you are there for. Because you all probably feel it's maybe a one in a lifetime thing to go on the traitors and try and go as far as you can. Because it's like, were you shocked when you got you found out that you was going to be on it?
Yeah, yeah. I must admit there was a few times where I didn't know whether I wanted to do it, because when I had that first phone call and they said like, you're gonna we have to start you've kind of been shortlisted. How do you feel? And I was like, yeah, phone, yeah, I've got this. It's great. I think as time goes on, I start to think the reality starts to set in, and you think in a minute I'm going to be in this game, and it does. You do have moments of kind of like, oh, is this right for me? I think I spoke to my family lots of times. I think I spoke to my mum at one point. I said that my mum, I can't do this. And my mum was a true legend in who she is, and was like, "You are doing it. There's no way. I'm going to put you in a boot, and you're gonna get kidnapped. You are doing it." And I think that was what I needed at the time. But yeah, it was scary. And that first day when you go in and you're meeting everyone was. I just there you are. You could see by my reaction just how scary it was. You do kind of lose your voice a little bit, lose your train of thought a little bit. Bearing in mind, you're in a game now, so you can't show that weakness. So, yeah, it was the craziest experience of my life, and I do recommend anyone. Would you do it?
I would, I would, and I've actually applied. Um,
Ooh.
I've actually applied. I don't think I will get there because I don't know. I applied the first time, and I'm gonna apply every time until I get there.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
as long as they do. So I am very good at making people believe different stuff. So I could put on a straight face. I'm very good at tricking people.
Okay.
I'm very good at
Brilliant.
tricking people, and I think I'd be a good traitor. More so than a faithful, but purely because I could. I don't know. I kind of relate myself maybe a little bit to maybe the way Harry did things, but it's well as said than done. I could just say that and not. It depends what you like in there. Maybe certain things could get the better of you, but yeah, I have applied. So if I get in,
Oh, well, all the best of luck with that. I honestly, I think it's commendable to anybody that's going to do it because it's a crazy adventure. And I think everybody, and the beauty of the traitors is, and the one thing that I really celebrate more so than any other reality show, I think, is that the people are chosen because they all bring different dynamics to the group, and I think that's the importance. So they won't go for I don't want to say it in any particular reality show, but you can imagine you don't go for one looks, or you don't go for because they, you know, for this example, they go for lots of different people. Like you look at the cast from series 2, the one that I was in, everybody was completely different, and that is what makes good TV, right?
Yeah, it's very important how important that they pick the people. Like you've had like a couple of you had like ADHD, and
Mm.
which is really good. It's really good to raise that awareness as well. And then you've got like Molly who's got like IBD, and
Mm.
I recognise Molly because I spoke to her before she got
Thank
in
you.
there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so a few years ago, before she was famous, let's say, I had her on a podcast and she shared her story, and I think it was ulcerative colitis and stuff.
Wow.
And that was a few years ago, around 2020, 2021.
And I think, yeah, I honestly think you should go for it. I really do. And I think you'd be such an interesting character. I really do. I'd be rooting for you. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, because I've spoke to you and I spoke to Charlotte and Molly may recognise me, so maybe you could, like,
Yeah, that's it. Drop, just say
you'll
put
know
a
who I
good
am.
word in. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll know who I am. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, put a good word and say, get me on there.
That would be
Uh,
brilliant.
yeah, but I think it's the only show I've never really applied for anything else.
Mm.
It took a while to apply, because I emailed them, and because I applied the first time and I emailed them saying, do I have to apply again? Because I applied once already, and they said, well, you've got to apply all again. And I'm sorry, so I did
Oh,
that
what a nightmare.
again.
And it's such a long process and long application form. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well done you. The next time you just need to save it to a file. Hopefully this next series will be the one for you.
Yeah, I'm unsure how long it takes, because I don't know when. I think it's probably in the summer they'll start doing it, but I'm unsure when the deadline is to get the call or whatever that may be. But hopefully, fingers crossed.
Oh, cool. Fingers crossed for you as well.
Fingers crossed. So when you went in there, was you hoping that you was going to be a faithful or a traitor?
So I think when I looked at the show, I was like, wow, I think I'd rather be a faithful, I think. Um, but the same with anybody, you don't know, so you have to be prepared for both. So when Claudia goes around the round table, I was terrified. So terrified. I think I had fingernail marks in my hand where I was gripping so much. I think I wanted to be a faithful, and I think especially when I got in there and I met everybody, yeah, it became more apparent that I just don't think I could my nerves could stand could stand being a traitor. I think I had to be a faithful. I mean, I would have given it the best shot that I could have done if it was. But I think you talked about the ADHD just now. Naturally, in my brain, I overthink. Not I say overthink, but I go over things in my head, conversations. So even like, you know, when I'm in bed or whatever, I will think about those conversations that I've had over the last 3 days, and I would analyze it. And I'm quite a self-aware person, so I think being a traitor, I'd probably go into overdrive because of the
Yeah,
fact that uh, I'd be thinking, oh, did I say that right? Shall I do that differently? And that can cause anxiety, right? Like you can get yourself to a point where, um, yeah, it's almost like I mean, it's called it's over just being overwhelmed with ADHD because you outside externally you're not really doing a lot because inside you're like your thought processes are just going absolutely wild. So yeah, could I have done it? I would have given it my best shot, but yeah, I think I had to be a faithful, really.
yeah. You can, like from watching it, and your own experience. Like you kind of feel, probably in the first series, that all the traitors went against each other, and it took that vibe in the second series as well, where all the traitors wanted the traitors out. And for me thinking that, I have thought about that on board. Like it's funny because Paul thought he was the in charge. He's thinking, oh, I'm gonna get all the way in, and then Harry takes him off for something Paul said in the taxi. So um, it's interesting because I think if I was on the show, I would be nervous because with my autism, if I meet new people, I'm very shy. Like if it's an in person, especially. So I'd be really shy just standing there, and then people may pick that off, like saying I'm a traitor because I ain't been talking to anyone. So
Yeah,
just those
yeah,
things
yeah.
that
Yeah.
like, you may get called a traitor. If you are, it's even more intense because if you are that traitor,
And exactly. And one of the things that we talked about and we tried to do within the round table is we tried not to pick out people's personal um the way that they communicate or whether that they are nervous. And we tried to eliminate that right at the start, just because I mean it's cute to be nervous. You're around that round table or however you present and Brian was a big case of that, I think. I never voted for Brian just because again, like I said, I work in mental health, and I knew at that time that that wasn't traitorish behavior. That was genuine anxiety. Like I could see that straight away. The fact that he was trying to overcompensate, he was trying to kind of claw it back, and it was almost desperation where he thrown himself in the ring a little bit. Because I mean that's anxiety. That's the beauty of it, right? Is that that's what it does. That's what it does. It gets you to a point where by trying to kind of get yourself out of it, you end up getting more into it.
yeah, and like you gotta get nervous going to sleep as well, not knowing if you're going in the morning.
Going
Um,
in the morning. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think right at the start, I as I watched it back, I was really proud of myself because right at the start, you could see that almost I would because I stim all the time, so I like I'm always moving my hands. You'll notice it when you watch it, or you could probably see it on the podcast. I'm either itching my head, I'm moving, I'm always doing that. And I think when I was right at the start of I almost tried to stop doing that and almost pull it back in because I didn't want people to judge me or I didn't want people to notice that, and see that, like you just said, as traitorous behavior. Oh, well, Charlie gets really nervous because he's actually itching her head, or and sometimes I think in society, not just in that game, that people are not sometimes going to understand. Sometimes I vocal tick as well, so I just randomly go bam, like, or I'll do this, or where I get so anxious or overexcited that I'll randomly just go and people would
yeah.
stop. I mean, I've had it in supermarkets where people have turned around to see if I'm okay. Like, where did that come from? And it's really difficult to then understand to kind of explain. And I was really aware of that in the traitors, I think, in the show. Um, but then as the time went on, you could see that I started to kind of be a little bit more open with that because it's tricky.
Yeah, it's just little things people pick up, and maybe sometimes people just throw an accusation at someone because they think they're gonna get picked, so they're gonna throw an accusation at someone else to try and get away from them. So you always probably feel
Classic deflection, yeah.
yeah. By going in there, you're probably gonna know everyone at some point is gonna be there. That they're all gonna have an accusation thrown against them.
Mm, yeah, and everybody did, and it did get heated a couple of times. I think there was a little bit of a an argument between Charlotte and Zach. There was, I think, before between Jasmine and Johnny. But the crazy thing was there wasn't many arguments with the traitors. We were the faithfuls were kind of turning on themselves. Initially, we were all having arguments with each other.
It's what they wanted.
They were clever. They were clever. They were clever, and I got a root for Ash as well. Like I think she had a bit of a hard time of it because it was a difficult time to be a traitor. It was right at the start, like and even though it was a faithful, and I think boo to the traitors. I thought that they almost kind of seen her as a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
So and that was it, wasn't it?
They thought someone that maybe isn't as maybe good as them, in their opinion, in the other two traitors' opinions, and then they thought an opportunity to get rid of one, so they've got a traitor, so everyone feels really
Exactly,
happy.
exactly, and that's how they did it. And like you said about that kind of, she wasn't as dominating as the other two. She wasn't. She was almost like let's work as a team, and that's who Ash was. and how she wanted to, but the other two, they were pretty cutthroat, you know? They were like, this
Yeah.
is what's going to happen. This is what goes. I mean, I think even when Diane, like what Harry said to Ross, that to me was one of my favorite parts of the whole series when he said, Ross said, why did you murder Diane? And he said, well, she got a little bit too big for her boots and we like, I mean, that kind of defines where Harry's coming from a trauma. So,
Yeah.
excuse me. I don't think that Ash had stood a chance really with that.
No, I mean, I agree with what she was saying, Ash, when she was saying I think all the traitors just sit together because that's what they sign, don't they? You know, when you become a traitor, you say you've got to not tell you're a traitor.
That's it.
So I feel that's what the traitors should be, not traitors going on against each other all the time. I mean, if I was a traitor, and I'm sure if you was a traitor, you kind of feel that you have to get rid of the other traitors that maybe got rid of your friends. So that's what it comes to. If you're later on in the game, like Miles was, I think Miles weren't silly. He didn't, and Ross as well. Ross wanted to avenge his mother. That didn't
He did.
work long, did it?
No, really, and it backfired so much.
So,
And I think
yeah.
I would have, there were so many people that were rooting for Ross in that
Uh,
situation, you know.
yeah, if I see an opportunity, I'm gonna take it. um, I was rooting for him. I was. I was really hoping that he would
I
do it.
mean,
But like it wasn't gonna happen, was it? For him and Miles was really in a tricky situation when he was a traitor because they did well. They were really clever, Harry and Paul, when when that happened when Miles got detected because they were like, I don't want to hold the wine or give Diane it. Someone else is gonna do it. So they've kind of Miles is the bait like Ash was at the start.
absolutely. And but do you know what? I got to give it out to Miles. I mean, he had a fierce round table with Paul. I mean,
Yeah.
things out, earrings were out. He was going for it. And he went down with it. Now, bearing in mind, like you just said, we can't have traitors calling out traitors because it needs to be, it needs to be fair. But at the same time, he gave it a good go. I think he set the tone really for Paul. But in terms of the way that Miles went for it, and you gotta love Miles' attitude. He was like he had his stilettos in hand. He was going for it.
Yeah. And I think because Miles did that, that kind of made people think, hang on, is it Paul now? Is Paul a traitor? So
Yeah,
Miles
yeah,
did help that. And like, if I was a traitor, I would love it for everyone to get on. Like the faithful should. But it doesn't
yeah.
seem it ever works. Hopefully the next series it does. They all stick together. But they won't. We just know it. They won't. They're all going to be against each other again.
It's, it's the distrust, right? Because you are traitors and you're watching people get like murdered and banished and how manipulative the traitors are. That is going to cause a seed of doubt in the traitors because if you're manipulating other people right in front of your faces, it's only a matter of time before you think, well, they could be trying to manipulate me. So the next series, all right, you've got to pull together, but at the same time, you've got to be a bit savvy because they will throw you under the bus no matter how much you can.
Yeah.
Um, it's just who strikes first, I think, and that's it. Look, maybe there will be, maybe I was stand corrected, but there's a lot of nerves going on in that turret.
Yeah. Like you've got it's all very interesting. Like I think when you get towards the end though, I think so maybe some of the traitors just want to be alone at the end and be like, oh, you get further in and you think, hang on, I want the money. I'm thinking about the money more now than that. The more you in you get.
Exactly, exactly, and the fact that you work better alone because you haven't. I mean, you can imagine if you're as a traitor. I mean, I could imagine you're all sat around this table and you've got people kind of looking at you and watching you lie. It's going to be tricky. So sometimes I suppose it would be easy for you to just rock out on your own.
Yeah, and it is hard because I think people maybe feel that they get friendships in the way that they make in there,
Mm.
and it is a game, and like, you can see it on there, like how serious some people do take it. Um,
Mm?
Like if an accusation gets thrown at someone and them say, "I'm not, I'm a faithful, I'm a faithful," and then it just watch it. It's just funny. It's funny seeing all that heat up. But I imagine when you're in there, it's very, very lots of tension going on all over the
Yeah,
place.
it is, and it just, I mean, it's so quick how everybody can just switch. Like, because you'll be around the round table, and there were a couple of times there was no one was even mentioned until we got around the round table. Next thing you know, they're going and they're bowing, or they're it was just happened so fast. And that's what I think. Even as a faithful, I was nervous about was how quick it can turn around. Is that some people they would almost blindside people, and then they would, blindside people at the round table. And I think there was a couple of times where I raised people's names around the round table, so I didn't want them to have a chance to be able to defend themselves. Because if you're going to sit there and say, I think you're a traitor, and I'm going to mention your name in the round table, that gives them a chance to almost sort out what's happening or what their reasoning is going to be. So, what would you do? Would you blindside people, or would you give them time to prepare? What would you do?
I wouldn't want to. I would want to be as good as possible. But if someone blinded me, and you kind of feel like they deserve that back, if they did it to you.
Yeah,
And so if it's a valid explanation, come and talk. We can talk about it. But if they just do it for the sake of it, saying it just it makes you really anxious.
yeah, of course, of course.
And like I guess with my autism, if someone points someone out without not explaining why, I mean it just gets really anxious and you might stim a lot and stuff like that. So it becomes very serious when you get these accusations pulled at you. Um, and especially if you're like from an autism perspective, the name of the game is the traitors stick together, the faithful stick together. When one traitor don't stick, you wonder why. I mean, Ash was in a difficult situation. I think Ash did it on herself before the traitors came for her. I think she was really close to leaving at a round table before the traitors decided, hang on a minute, maybe we should let her go. I guess that's a bit different, and maybe deep down, watching it, she can understand that that's why they did that for the traitor's cause.
Mm,
But if a
mm.
traitor just automatically goes for you, um, like maybe going for series one, Will just go for anyone. He would, and like he's going for the traitors willy nilly. There must have been half a dozen traitors. Half the cast must have been the traitor in series one. I mean, I mean, I mean, I think even us watching that, we wanted Will to mess up. We didn't want Will to win. If Will, we were so happy. We all cheering like it was the World Cup. England won the World Cup or something
Right. Yeah,
in the
yeah.
final. He don't win. He says at the end, he says, he was going to split the money. He said he was going to he felt really bad. And watching it back, it's like we all think, no, no, he didn't. He wanted to
No, of
get to the
course
end of it
not.
himself.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. I love it. Honestly, I love. And when people, like, some people come up to me in the street or they want to talk about it or however, I always ask people what they thought about certain people. Were you happy with the ending? Because you get such a, so many people watch an episode and all have a different take on it or a different, where some are happy, some are not happy. And I think a lot of people were rooting for Harry, like, because he was so good. But at the same time, a lot of people were rooting for Molly. And there was other people that were kind of rooting for
Yeah,
so that was never
I
going to work. We're never going to have a traitor and a faithful winning at the same time.
no, I was rooting for Harry though. I think he played the traitor really well. I
Yeah.
think he did good as the traitor. He was fair and he was
Mm,
okay. He was a bit different to Will in the first series.
mm.
You could say he is the Will of series two in the sense that he did really well in that sense, but in the other sense, he did well because he just so good. He did so
He
clever
was.
things.
He was.
He did so
Yeah.
good. And when Paul, I think most of us neutrals who are watching it, we wanted Paul to go out. Paul was the Will where we wanted him to go. We wanted Paul to go because Paul was so. Paul was so cocky. Paul, when he comes out, he says, I was going to go all in. I mean, me and Harry were going to go for the win." And then, but we know, I think he wasn't it. I think he wanted to go for himself. In the end, he would have tried to get Harry out like Harry did with Paul. So Harry did good for getting Paul out when he did.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it was a really good watch. It really was. It really was. And I think that everyone done really well. And I think Charlotte, you know, me and Charlotte were really good friends in there. And I do look back and I think because I mentioned Charlotte's name right at the end, like honestly, it was even watching it back, it did bring tears to my eyes, and I needed to kind of just take a step away for a little bit, just because I mean we and Charlotte are cool and we're good, but uh I was just convinced. I was absolutely convinced that she was a traitor. And the reason why I say that is, you know, take away what you know, which is the real traitors. Charlotte has an amazing way to kind of, you know, be, you know, just get everyone's attention in the room. Everybody loved her. I just think that she could have had it down, you know. And we have talked about the fact that, you know, would she have been? And I'm sure you've got it on your other podcast where, yeah, she was like, yeah, I could have done it. And I thought, and maybe that's what I saw in her, because that's the only thing you can really go off is, do you think somebody's got the capacity to be able to do it? And is there any evidence? Well, I didn't have any evidence at that time. So I just thought, well, you know, yeah, she would be a fantastic traitor.
I'll have to send you her episode, and you can maybe listen or watch. Um,
I'd love
yeah,
that. I'd love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Charlotte's so cool.
yeah.
We do speak to each other regularly, and I just we got on really well in the game, and we talk all the time, which is really cool. And the fact that, you know, she's got ADHD like me, we were trouble. We were real trouble. There was a couple of times where, you know, we would get told off because we would be playing, you know, or messing around or being too loud or yeah, I think it just we had to get split up a couple of times. Just we're having such a good time. And she would kind of be there, I would be there, and then we kind of just make each other just do this to the point that we were just running around like absolute crazy people, you know? But yeah, she was such good fun and we really matched energies and she's such a lovely person.
It's good. It's good that you made a friend in there, like
Yeah.
like one that maybe like you're gonna take out. I guess it's like being in school, isn't it? For a few weeks. You're in school. You go to your induction, and then you meet all these new people, and then you make friends after it.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And at the same time, I thought that she was a traitor. I mean, if a
Yeah.
friendship can get through, you know, almost outing somebody at the round table, then you can pretty much make it through anything. Because, you know, by me saying that in front of the round table, then led to her going pretty much. Because that day, I mean, everybody said, you must have murdered Charlie. You must have murdered her. And I thought, and she was trying to defend herself with some really valid reasons, really. Why would she have murdered me? You know, I literally just said her name at the round table. Why would she murder me? That would be so obvious, you know. And that is that people got caught up in that quite a bit this series as well. It's
Yeah.
like, well, it's almost they were following. Well, you were murdered because you mentioned your name. No traitor is going to murder somebody a day after they've been obviously that right, and you get a traitor, you're good for the game.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it, to get a traitor and not knowing who the traitors are because I guess what Jazz felt, I think he knew who the traitors were, but he
Mm.
didn't want to get them out because he knew he'd maybe going home the following night. So he played it really carefully, and like Harry, he probably knew Harry was a traitor from the conversation that not Ross, that Paul had with Jazz,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
really
He
blew it.
must have, right? He must have.
Yeah, that like Paul saying that is basically giving away Harry's a traitor.
Yeah,
um, and
pretty much.
and yeah, yeah, I think Paul was thinking, let's get Harry out. I think that's what he was thinking, trying to put on to Jazz to get Harry gone. But yeah, you've got to be really careful who you speak to, I guess, in there because you don't know who you're speaking to and who's a traitor and who's a faithful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And It's such a mystery, a little mystery that I'm so looking forward to the next series. I am absolutely going to be on the edge of my seat waiting, and it's such a long time to wait for episodes, right? It's like a week, just on one a week. I mean, that's no good, is it? No good.
No, like you have series now where normal Netflix and stuff where you have it all at once. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That would be a lot better, right? But
yeah,
then everybody would watch it in one day,
yeah, you'd be
back to
spoiled.
back to back to. I
You'd be
think, what is it,
spoiled.
12 episodes, I think, all in
Yeah,
all. So
you're
yeah, you
told.
could totally do that. Just, not going to work.
Yeah, there's a few series like The Traitors that I've watched, which I'll try to find as much as I can, things like The Traitors, because you've got loads of The Traitors, um,
Mm,
and you want to try and find things that are like it, like mystery things. Um, but like I think on the first series they released I think 2 episodes. I think they put on BBC iPlayer the first two, and then they did it
mm,
weekly. And I think they did it maybe
mm.
for the first two on this second series, but then it was weekly. But I guess it just gives you questions to talk about why they do it weekly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it does build tension. It's all to build tension. It's all to get people talking to see what's going on. And I think it's really good, clever planning. Like, um, I mean, there was ideally you almost want another country to kind of release the traitors so you could almost watch the two together. So you got the English one, the one in the UK, then the Australian one, and then the American one. I watched all of them, but I just don't think that anyone matches the UK, to be honest.
Well, I've watched the Australian one. I think even before the UK one came out. I think they released that before.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think I like the Australian one, but yeah, like you said, I don't think any of them top the UK's one.
No. Well, thank you. I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the USA one's good. It's the same place as the one you do in the UK.
It
Um,
is, yeah.
and yeah, I like that one. I do. But I think like it's annoying because say you get like it's happened in the Australian one. Like say you get to the end, like I think there's 3 traitors and 1 faithful. That means the faithful
Mm,
goes, and the traitors have to fight it out. But if they all don't agree, they all lose the money altogether.
mm,
Um, which
mm,
which is very disappointing.
that is. Oh, it's good,
It is
isn't it?
definitely. But last thing before we go, Charlie, is there any advice that you would say maybe to anyone else who would like to I wouldn't say audition, but maybe apply for it? Anything that you would say maybe give them a good
Yeah.
advice?
So definitely give them as much content as possible. So like send loads of videos, loads of pictures, loads of anything that reflects you. Like I don't know, you just messing around in front of the camera, clips of me and you on this podcast, or you know, that's what I would say really. Just as your best self, just as much content as you can put down. Show them you, and how and whoever you like, what that looks like. That's really cool, but it just needs to kind of show you in your every light, really. I would say. So I hope that's good advice for you.
Yeah, and do you feel being like being neurodiverse, having ADHD, do you think that really helps in the traitors, or do you think it's like how? What do you think around that?
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. I think that everybody's different, and I think we were all a bit neurodiverse, to be honest. We did often almost have a little bit of a chuckle in the fact that we were all neurodiverse in lots of different ways, and I won't take anyone else's words from them, but yeah, definitely there was lots of different neurodiversity in there. Not just ADHD. There was people with mental like anxiety. There was people with ASD. There was a full range, and I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Is that we've almost got this superpower, and I think that is the way that we have to look about it. Is that it's a heightened way of looking at a life, and that should absolutely be empowered. And yeah, that's what I gotta say. I just think it is a superpower in every way.
It is a superpower, it helps. It helps, especially not just going on there, just in everyday life, like all the different things that you've
Yeah,
achieved. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see things that not necessarily other or mainstream people will see. Picking up on different things and different emotions and different and a bit of self-awareness. So yeah, I think it's such a beautiful thing. I think it should be celebrated. And I think we're very blessed. So I'm very blessed to be here to talk about it. This is the first kind of interview that I've actually really spoke about the ADHD. I wanted to talk about it a little bit more, but obviously it is about a game, you know. But I could talk about it for days because I think it's where we are now, and I think it should be absolutely celebrated.
Well, thank you for sharing it because, of course, you don't get to like on the show. You don't. It's a game, like you say. So it's good to have an opportunity to share it. Just about you, really. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what was it like for you, and not just on there, just everyday life as well.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, because it's one thing I like to talk about with people, well, because
Mm.
I've autism myself, and like just sharing other people's journeys around that, just so they get the opportunity to do that, because not everyone does, and it can be really shy just doing it in like in speeches and stuff like that. So maybe this is a bit easier to do that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it, and I'm so blessed for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
You've
thank you,
been so
Charlie.
accommodating and articulate, and I think, and I just think that you're gonna. I really rooting for you, and I want you to go on the trail.
Yeah.
I think that you just be really good. So I
Thank
look forward to
you.
seeing you on my
Yeah.
screen.
Thank you, Charlie. And put a good word in if you want.
Oh, will do.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
But to anyone listening, watching today, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. And yeah, we look forward to the new series, The Traitors, that is many months away now. But hopefully I'm on it. If not, I'll be still applying it year in, year out. But thank you, Charlie, for coming on, and I hope you have a nice rest of your evening.